Sanne, so happy to be here with you. Thank you
Happy to
for
be
joining
here.
me
Yeah.
for a little fireside chat minus the fire.
Although it's hot.
So you have a really impressive background, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But as is customary here at Google, we always have to start with a fun fact. So to start us off, tell us one fun fact about yourself.
One fun fact, I'm a NASCAR fan. That's not all of it. In 2008, I was at a racetrack in Michigan International Speedway. And as it happens to be on the Sunday morning, I was there very early. And I saw a line of people, and I was wondering what that's all about. Well, long story short, I ended up in a car. I was driven around by Kevin Harvick, one of the top drivers of NASCAR champion, around the Michigan International Speedway. And that was quite an experience.
That is quite an experience.
Fun fact.
Thank you for telling us. So share with us what you did prior to joining Google and what brought you here to us.
Yeah. So Jay introduced me quite well. I worked in localization for over 10 years, but this is not what I imagined when I got my degree in software engineering, actually. When I graduated, it was a bad time to be hired in software development. So I found a job in customer service, customer support for a small company, and we developed a content management system. And so I did this for about a year. And then I was found by a headhunter, and he told me about this great opportunity in localization. I had no clue what that meant at the time. And he offered me a position at SDL, one of the big global players. And I was with the company both in Europe and here in the US for over 7 years. And then my second job in localization was with Venga Global. And during those 10 plus years, I was very fortunate to experience the whole spectrum of localization from the beginning, what it means as a project manager to just work on a project, what kind of obstacles you have to go through, not only on our side, but also on our client side. And then the end of the spectrum as VP of Operations, where you talk about a strategic level, what can you do as a partner better to positively impact your clients and their strive to go to the global business. So I was very fortunate to have all of that in one career. And then I met Jay, and I got this really fantastic opportunity to join Google, and needless to say, it's Google, so who wouldn't want to join? But also, it's a great opportunity because we are forming a new team here, and I can use all my knowledge that I acquired in all those years in my career in localization and combine it with what we are doing here already with export, and we had so many good things earlier today, and that's just a great opportunity.
Thanks for sharing. So I'm thinking hopefully people in the audience have the same question, which is just before we dive in more to the chat, just to level set ourselves here, just take a minute to define what is localization. What do we mean?
That's a good question because okay.
Apparently you need a mic.
Apparently I need a mic. Localization is a term that is used widely, but in different approaches, and we mean different things. But what it actually describes is the process of making your product or your service or your content applicable to the local market. And many companies, many of us think localization is equally translation. That's not the case. Translation is one part of localization.
Right.
So you translate the text as we just seen in that nice video. But localization is so much more. You need to look into cultural references. We need to talk about colors. For example, the color white, what does it mean to you? What does white mean to you? What do you think?
Blank.
Blank. Okay. So usually we say it's a pure color. We use it for weddings in the Western culture.
Right.
In Asia, it's the color of mourning. And if you don't know that, you might have a different experience with the same product.
Got it.
13 is an unlucky number in the Western culture. In Japan, it's the number 4. So I had a client, and they had a new product, and they used the product name 444. And they discovered that very late in the localization process. That wasn't really a good thing to do. So it's more than just translation. It's really looking into all the cultural aspects when it comes to images, to colors, to colloquialism. If I tell you, give me a number, give me a ballpark number, you know what that means. If I translate that into French, the poor French person has no clue what you want from it. So localization is really addressing all those issues and making your content, your product, locally applicable.
Got it. Okay, thanks for sharing. So we heard about our new global expansion team here in the Americas. What's your take on it? We're obviously very excited about it, but what's your perspective? What's your take?
So I think my colleague Adine, gave a wonderful introduction into our new team. And I think it shows a great deal about us as a company, us at Google, that we are focusing so much on export, because the future of all of our business, our clients' business and their customers, is export.
Right.
We still grow domestically everywhere, that's true. But export, going global, going into the international world, that is a big, big part of it. And for the first time, we have this dedicated team, and now we are able to help our clients with market insights, with strategic insights, to address this global market way faster and in a smarter way. So for me, that's a really big deal, and it speaks volumes about what Google sees in the future. So I think that's a really good thing.
Agree. A question that I've asked Jay this before, I'm going to ask you, is what is the difference between export and internationalization? I think of it as what we're doing is we're helping our clients internationalize their business, and yet we talk a lot about this word export. How do you see that?
Yeah, it's a little bit similar to localization. Export and internationalization, we use it here in our little world almost interchangeably. So we mean going global, going to a different market than your own. Historically, they come from different sides, though. So export comes from the product era, where you actually ship a product. You think about something that you produce, you sell, and then you ship it.
Sure.
Okay, now we have a digital world, so shipping is still part of it, but you might have a software that you download, you might have a service or a subscription that you sell. While internationalization actually comes from the software development side. And if you internationalize your product, that means taking care of all those nuances that I spoke before about. So, and now we need to look into numbers, different currencies. We have date formats. We have special characters. So in English, we don't have special characters. Many other languages do. We have double byte characters for the Asian languages. We have Hebrew, Arabic languages. They go right to left, not left to right. Is your software able to display all of that, or does it crash? So this is what this term means and where it comes from. Now, this term has evolved as well. And nowadays, if we talk about internationalization, we include content, we include a strategy, because that is really important. It's not about a product alone, but your strategy that you have as a company, does that apply in other countries? Or do you need to take in local references and local cultural situations and adjust how you address this market? But in our little world here, we use them basically very similar, in a similar way.
Got it. Okay. So in our little world here, or in our very large world here, talk to us about what you see as the top challenges of internationalizing your business.
How much time do you have? Okay. Let me try to give you maybe my top 3 or 4. How about that? The first question I get a lot for over 10 years now is, where do we start? And I think Julia mentioned that in an earlier session, that she hears the same from her clients. Where do we start? Localization or going international isn't something that comes naturally. There is no clear path. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you do all those steps, you're there. It's a very unique process for every client, because it depends on what industry you're in. Where do you want to go? Do you have a product? Do you have a service? So there's so many nuances, and it's very difficult for clients who are not already out there to find the right entry point. So that's something we definitely struggle with. And one piece of advice I can give everyone here, talk to your partners, talk to your peers, networking. This is a great opportunity. Talk to customers who may be very similar to you. How did they do it? What did they experience? What didn't work for them, so you don't make the same mistakes? Or reach out to our team, and we can provide insights and help on that as well.
Great.
So thing number 2 is defining your content strategy. You have a lot of content. You have a website that's maybe 20 levels deep. Do you need to translate all of it in every language, in every country? No, you don't. So be smart about that. I think the best advice here is, when we talk about website and content, try to group it into tiers. So you have your tier 1 languages, where everything is important and you need to do more. So probably you need to translate everything. And then you have a tier 2, where the market is there but not as strong as tier 1. Maybe on the website you actually get insights how deep users browse on your website, and you stop at a certain level and say, okay, if someone goes that deep, he is really interested, and then he's probably fine with English. And you can use this approach for tier 2. And tier 3 would be entry-level countries, where you say, we're just getting started. I don't even really know whether there's a good response. So a landing page and maybe 1 or 2 collaterals will do. So be smart about your content. Number three, what do I put at number three? I think selecting vendors. And actually, I don't want to say vendors. I want to say partners. Be smart.
Yeah.
Select a partner, because the difference is if you select a vendor, he will exactly do what you tell him to do. I give you a document and I say, please translate this into those 26 languages, and that's what he's going to do. A partner will ask questions. They will ask, what happens before? Is this the final format? Do you have copy and pasting to do? Are there limitations on the website? They will ask questions that are important not only to the translation and localization of that content, but also to you later as a client in your process, because maybe you do 5 other steps that could be eliminated if your partner had understood the process. So be smart, select partners, not vendors. And then I think the most difficult one actually is defining your goals and defining measurements to measure those goals. And we all think defining goals is easy. So I need to go to 5 countries. That's easy, right? Well, it might not be, specifically when you start, because if you set your goals too high, if they're not achievable, you might think the whole process is wrong. You don't have a frame of reference just yet when it comes to what does it take to localize, what does it take to go to the international market. Once you get your feet wet and you understand how it all works, you selected your partners, then you can move more quickly. So be a little bit restrictive in the beginning, be a little bit careful, and definitely try to find the best measurements. To follow up on your progress. And that, again, sounds easier than it is, but I just say, how do you measure quality? You can do it in so many ways. So really talk with your partners and talk with us. How can we achieve to measure our goal and to measure our success?
The measurement is key, no doubt. I hear from a lot of clients concerns around cost, right? Like this can be a very expensive endeavor, both from technology needed, you talk about partners, there's a lot of costs in terms of time, a lot of organizational, operational side that we need to consider. What do you want us to know about that?
Yeah, and you're right. Before I give you my answer, I want to exclude a certain portion. I'm not sure if we have anyone here from the healthcare industry or pharmaceutical, because those areas are usually very, very costly just because you're dealing with human life and there are different rules and regulations that apply that cannot be transferred or compared to non-healthcare content.
That makes sense.
So, but for everyone else, if you do it the wrong way, you can spend a lot of money. You think you're getting a good deal, but maybe you're not. And this goes actually back to the 4 points that I gave earlier. If you select the right partner, for example, they will help you save cost. How do they do this? They analyze your content. They tell you, well, I looked at this piece of website, the content from the website, and I have a collateral. And the content is almost identical. They talk about the same feature or the same service that you offer. But it's written slightly differently. So you pay twice for basically the same thing. And since we cannot change it, but we can advise you to talk to your authors and maybe they consolidate. Because then you're not only saving costs because it's already translated, more importantly, you save time. And everyone knows time is money. We need to be on the market quicker, so that's definitely a point. Then again, prioritize your content. Do you have to do everything at the same time? Maybe not. Look into your most important markets, prioritize those, and then make a budget and factor in basically a waved or a tiered rollout. This can help with the cost. Look at the biggest chunks first. If you translate them, you should get leverage if the content is similar from other parts. You don't have to pay twice again. If you do it simultaneously, you will have to do twice because you need more translators to get it done in time. And then again, I cannot stress the importance of having a good partner who points out all of those little areas and who use the technology. You just said, well, do I need to buy technology? Maybe I cannot afford it. No, you don't. Some companies still do, mostly the bigger companies, because they want to be in control of certain things. But it's not just the technology you have to buy. It's also the operational apparatus you have to build around it. You have to have a team who manages those projects, which is sometimes used or handled by your partner. So if you choose the right partner, they have all the technology you need and you don't have to pay for it. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. And quick follow-up question on that, because I think there's probably a handful of folks in the room here who do have partners already. If I have a partner, should I also consider in-house validation? Is that something, do I need that check and balance?
If you're in healthcare, definitely yes. You cannot be too careful there, and you have to have this double security line, basically, and the double quality assurance. If you're not in healthcare, many companies think they have to. And I would like to challenge that. There's really, unfortunately, no good answer. There is not a black and white answer. But if you define your process correctly, if you talk about terminology with your partner to tie certain terms down before you actually start. If you talk about style guides, what style do you expect in France? What style do you expect in Italy? You can take away a lot of the quality concerns. Some are definitely mistranslation, and that shouldn't happen, but others are just a difference of opinion. So the more you can do upfront, the less you have to invest. And having in-house validation or translation teams are very costly because usually they're on your payroll, you have them full time. Can you make sure they're utilized at all times? So if not, you have downtime and nothing for them to do. While in other areas where you have a launch, it spikes, and no matter how many people you have, you will not be able to absorb this. So you have to have a partner there anyway. So look into really, do you need this? I would like to challenge and say in most cases you don't.
That's good to know. I think I find that comforting. What do you think about companies who are taking an English-first approach as they are marketing internationally? How do you want us thinking about that area?
Yeah, it's definitely a cost-saving effort.
Yes.
So it can work. It can work if you are smart. If you look at countries that you go into, some countries are more receptive, and also if you're in a certain vertical. Specifically if you B2B, because B2B, it's the language of commerce is English, so it's more accepted. If you look into countries, and I think we had this actually with the game, the Nordic countries and the Netherlands, they are very receptive to English. So you can get away with English approach first for a certain amount of time. At some point, you will have to change, specifically when you're B2C. If you're addressing consumers directly, English only in non-native English-speaking countries, this is a bad approach. And actually there were two surveys out, I think in 2014, one from the European Commission and one from Common Sense Advisory. And they asked internet users how they would like to consume information and how they would like to make purchasing decisions. And about 90% of European participants in the study said they prefer the website in their local language. About 42% said they have the feeling they're missing out on vital information. That doesn't say they actually are, but they have the feeling, the perception, there's more out there and I just don't get it. So they're not as trusting when it comes to purchasing decisions. And about 44% said, well, you know what? I don't want to purchase anything online if it's not in my native language because I don't understand maybe the legalese at the end. And we all read it at some point and it's hard to understand in our own language. Now imagine you have to read this in a foreign language. If you have to work around dollar conversions, is that a good price? Is that a bad price? I see maybe $10 now, but I get charged 15 or 17 or 7. I don't know. So they're not as trusty. So yes, you can definitely start if you do it right, but at some point you have to switch. And this is where we as the global expansion team can help, because finding that sweet spot when it doesn't work anymore, that is tricky to find out, and this is where our experts come in.
Okay. Translation question for you, just kind of moving along on that theme. So for some industries, like in tech, consumers will search under the English term, like cloud is a good example. Yeah. Do you recommend that we match that to the local language? How should we think about that?
Yeah, the tech speak, the geek speak, is a little bit of an anomaly because even here in the US, we invent terms probably by the minute. I remember when cloud was actually SaaS. So we had the SaaS model for software, now it's the cloud model. Okay, it changes, and at some point you just have to go with the flow. So now imagine you are in Germany and you see this oncoming stream of words. Do you start to find your own local words for that? And by the time you all agreed on it, it moved on and you have a different one. So many countries, specifically in Europe and in Asia, they're happy with the English terms. You do see some that are translated, and those are mostly terms that have a similarity to existing words in this local language, and also the meaning is kind of similar. Then those countries tend to use the translated versions or the localized versions. France is an exception. They translate probably about 95% of everything anyway. So yes, in tech you can use English terms. And again, ask our team for inside information when and where you can do it, and whether you have to have a mix, some English, some local terms, depending on what industry you're in and also what country you're targeting.
Great. How does Google's approach to export, or as I like to call it more so, internationalization, how does that differ from what you've seen in previous roles that you've been in?
That's a good question, Stacey. And actually, I would come back to our own mission statement. So hopefully everyone knows here at Google, our mission is to organize the world's information, make it universally accessible and useful. And that describes what we're doing and how we approach export and marketing. We learned so many things about tools, about information, about insights, market insights, customer barometer. There's so much information out there. It is really difficult for someone who doesn't do this every day to come to the right conclusion. So our team looks at all those pieces of information and the information that we learn from our clients when it comes to their strategy. And we make this information useful. We put context to it. We put it in a strategy. We say, maybe you need to look at it this way, and here's the data that backs it up. But we're not only making it useful by putting it into context and into your strategy, we're also making it available.
Right.
And we're doing this by direct interaction with our team. And we're actually having a lot of tools, and we saw great demonstrations today. So we're making this, all of this information, those insights, and the results that we see, the strategy, available to our customers outside. And again, when I joined Google, I knew it was a good company. But now working here and seeing that something like a mission statement that was put out there so many years ago, just when we started with the search business, and now we're still doing it. And we're not just saying it, we do it every single day, because that's what our team does every single day, and I know that's what your team does as well.
Yeah, as Jay said, I do have a handful of clients who are sitting here in our audience today and have had the firsthand pleasure of being able to get up close and personal with the insights and the tools that we have available. And I'm so excited about everyone in this room being able to access so much of of those insights and those tools.
Perfect.
So.
Perfect.
So those are my big questions, and we actually have time for a couple of questions from the audience, so probably 2 or 3 questions. Yeah. You can take my seat, or you can ask from the audience. No, I'll call on a couple people. Burning questions for Sanne, and it could include another one of her fun facts.
And I have plenty, don't worry.
We found sites that use, for instance, they have the language.
We're going to give you a mic.
Have you found that sites that use, like, at the top of the page it says English or the local language works, or having a redirect to a site, to an area that's in the language locally works better?
So you mean on the site itself or in the URL?
In the site itself, so if
site
you go to a
itself.
site and then at the top it'll say English, Japanese, Chinese, whatever, and then it takes you to a section
Yeah.
of the page, or having it redirected automatically determines where you're at and taking you to that translated part of the page. Or even having a local domain, is that more trusting in the local language?
So let me address the first question. Having the local languages there is definitely helpful. Do yourself a favor as a company by putting the translated names out there. So if I see Chinese and English, that doesn't help me because I'm not going there since I don't speak Chinese. But the Chinese person might not speak English and they would know to go there. So have the localized names in that drop-down list. And that definitely helps to redirect traffic, specifically if the traffic is coming from outside of the country of that language. So for example, if you have Chinese speakers here in the US, they will definitely go there if they know they find a Chinese site. When it comes to local domains, whether you have a local domain or a subset, we have found no significant difference in either one of those. I would say, based out of my experience in localization, that local domains are a little bit more trustworthy because then it's perceived as you are there, you are in their country, you put some effort in there, so they trust you a little bit more, if that helps.
I think I saw one other question over here. Here we go.
Yep.
So you mentioned a couple resources that we can obviously use already, like the Google Translate that helps with localization. Are there any additional tools that we may not be aware of or that may be in beta testing that may also help with that localization?
So I'm not sure that I can speak to beta testing here, but I will make sure that all the expert consultants and UAMs and AEs will definitely let you know if something interesting comes our way. But besides the market insight tools that we shared with you today, just know that we are working on additional tools also when it comes to the translation part, which I cannot disclose right now, but yeah, we continue to work on that because everything moves so fast, and I think it's just for us right to put additional tools out there that help you go to the market even quicker. And translation localization is one part of it, and we already have this in the roadmap, so just stay tuned on that one.
Great. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up and say thank you again for joining us, and we're thrilled to have you here at Google. And